I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, January the 5th, brought to you in part by Livestock Risk Services, your LRP specialist. That's Dakota Moss, based out of Oklahoma City there at the Oklahoma National Stockyards Exchange Building. And if you're stopping there, stop in and see him and visit about your LRPs. If you're somewhere nearby and you know some of these agents that he has working with him, get a hold of one of those. But we know you have questions about the LRPs. We know you want to know where your strike prices are at. You want to know what your premiums are going to be. You want to know how much the federal government's going to kick in to help you with those. Get a hold of them at Livestock Risk Services. Feeder board response was sharply higher on Wednesday. What did it respond to? Did it respond to the sharply higher cash feeder cattle markets that happened to start this year out? Doubtful. Did it respond to corn being down sharply on Wednesday? Probably. What else did it respond to? Maybe the fact that your fuel has lightened up in price and that has backed off a little bit from demand for your ethanol. That's probably part of it too. But it responded for something. But you know, your feeder cattle board's kind of a joke. It's so lightly traded and so heavily influenced by traders and those that are managing money and don't have anything to do with the industry, and they can pretty much make it any price that they want it to be. So the industry as a whole does not pay that big of attention to it, other than if they are going to price you know, maybe your LRPs off of it whenever you're looking at a strike price down the road. We've got to have something to look at, and it's the best thing that we have out there because we have nothing else, and that's the only reason that it's the best thing out there. But feeder board was up sharply on Wednesday. Your live cattle futures were up pretty modestly, but still we did see gains in your cattle pits on Wednesday, which we should see that because we're seeing gains in the cash market. Are we close to the highs? Everybody, you know, has been looking for the past 6 months, you know, man, this thing's going to get better, and everybody's still saying that it's going to get better. How close to the highs are we? Are we almost there? How high is your fat cattle market going to be? Well, the extreme high that it's ever been in the history of the world, pushed by artificial means in 2014, was 172. Well, we're up close to 158 now. Are we going to make it as high as 172 or beyond? Doubtful, I would say. Should we make it up into the mid to high 160s? Yes, I do think we should get there. So we're nearing the top of your fat cattle market. I do see that I think that your lighter weight cattle could get a lot higher than what they are right now. We don't even have your near-term feeder cattle futures close to $2 a pound. They were easily that high 7 or 8 years ago when we were at our all-time record highs. If our feed wasn't so high, we would see that happening more nearby. But we are starting to see people thinking that if they're buying these lighter weight calves or these stocker cattle, that they're hoping to cheapen up with some grass gains in the spring or in the summer, and then hold them on that grass for a long time until we get close to next year's corn crop before you put them on feed. And they're hoping that it's going to be a bumper crop and it will cheapen up your corn prices and your feed costs significantly. Then you know, we've got more room to grow on your feeder cattle. And we are starting to see things turn a little bit as far as moisture wise. It's extremely wet, like record floods out west in Colorado. We are seeing some significant snowfalls in your elevations, you know, across your mountain ranges. Northern Plains has got a lot of snow in it. It's looking like we're turning into more of a wet year than we've been here for the last several. more of a quote-unquote normal type year. And if it continues to be that way, and we do see some significant rainfall in the Midwest, and we get things ready to plant corn, and then we get some more significant rainfall this spring, and we get a good crop, I fully expect your farmers to plant corn, from the shoulder of the road to the shoulder of the road and everywhere else, and probably break out some more of that precious grass that's left in the Midwest, which is very, very minimal. We don't see much grass at all left in your Midwest, but we should have a pretty good crop next year. Just looking, but I mean that's all speculation. But that's kind of what the industry is looking at right now. You look at your board for Wednesday, February live cattle futures were up 42 cents at 157.27. April was up 55 at 161.42. Back months on live cattle up 30 cents to up 65. Feeder cattle that I talked about at the beginning of this report were up big. January feeders up 252 at 185.22, and that is a significant premium to what cash feeders are trading at right now. We've been talking since this year started, was just a few days ago. These stockers are going to the moon. But it's a little more timid on your feeder weights. Those bigger cattle going right into the feed yard because the feed costs are so high, it just don't pencil out at all. March feeder cattle up 345 at 188.22, so maybe these feeder cattle do have a lot more to gain. Back months on your feeder cattle up 122 to up 295. Wow. Told you about grains being cheaper. March corn down 16 3/4 cents at 653 3/4. January beans down 9 cents at 1478 1/4. Your fat cattle trade is starting to break loose just a little bit, but we haven't established a market at all. But we did see a little bit of trade, direct trade negotiated in your 5-area feeding region. Of course, Colorado is back to confidential there for a couple of weeks. We got to see a little glimpse of trade out of Colorado, but now it's gotten back to where it's fully confidential because we don't have enough packers participating in your Colorado feedlot areas. Iowa, 2,100 head sold on Wednesday from 158 to 159.5, which is towards the very peak and actually 50 cents higher than last week's price spread. So that's pretty significant, and that's an optimistic look at your fat cattle trade that has not been established yet. Dress sales from 248 to 252, which was at the top end of last week's spread. Nebraska, only 300 head confirmed on Wednesday at 252, which was at the top, but that was the market on dress sales. Southern Plains has not traded any cattle to speak of at all, just some cattle off the market or some mixed bag type bunches of cattle, but nothing significant and sure not established at all. But we are starting to see things shake loose a little bit, and we expect your packers to be very aggressive this week, buying for next week, which will be the first full week of harvest of this new year. Box beef cutout values continue volatile. Choice cuts have been sharply higher here of late through the holidays, but we're down 405 on Wednesday at 282.89. Selects up 177 at 256.40. Trying to narrow that choice select spread a little bit that has gotten out of hand again. Your slaughter, it's still holiday slaughter. It's hard to tell anything from it, but 258,000 through the first 3 days of the new year here. That's 4,000 less than last week, 79,000 less than the same week a year ago when your holidays fell a little bit differently. Talk about what else is going on Thursday here on Thursday. Joplin Regional Stockyards is having a value-added special feeder cattle auction here today on January the 5th, expecting 7,000 head. They'll all be long-time weaned or short yearling type cattle. They will all had their shots, 2 rounds for the most part. all been in some kind of a approved preconditioning program there with Joplin Regional Stockyards. There will be larger groups, more uniform type groups, better consigners on your value-added specials at Joplin Regional Stockyards starting early here today on Thursday. And at the conclusion of the value-added special, they will have a primetime livestock video sale with about 14 lots, look to be about 25 to 30 loads of cattle. Going to be selling primetime livestock video from the barn at the conclusion of your Joplin value-added sale. You can watch that value-added sale at dvauction.com. You can watch the primetime livestock video at dvauction.com. Also, view and or bid. Talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DV Auction based on an 800-pound steer up through your middle 12 states. Cash price $178.95, down another $1.21, coming down from those monster prices at some of those special sales up in the northern plains during the holidays when we had very, very light receipts. So it's starting to get settled right in there, but still selling significantly lower than your spot feeder cattle futures. Look at what else is trading here in the Midwest. Russell, Iowa is going to have a big bred cow and bred heifer sale this Saturday, January the 7th. Got a lot of large groups in there, a lot of reputation deals, a lot of complete dispersals listed in there for a Saturday bred cow sale right there in Iowa. You can view and bid on dvauction.com. Call them beforehand if you're interested and get approved to bid. And then Russell, Iowa is going to be having a big feeder cattle special immediately following that on Monday, January the 9th. Don't miss either one of those sales. Like I said, you can view and bid those on dvauction.com. OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, had their second of their two-day feeder cattle auction there. They're now on dvauction.com. 8,300 head for the two-day feeder cattle sale, including the calves on Tuesday, the yearlings on Wednesday. Compared to 2 weeks ago, your feeder cattle sold steady to $2 higher on Wednesday. And as we talked on our last visit, the calves were 12 to 15 bucks higher on Tuesday. Their stick-out feeder sale on Wednesday was 158 head of steers, weighed 652 at 207. Dodge City, Kansas, Winter Livestock had a big sale on Wednesday, 5,100 head for their first sale of the new year. Compared to 2 weeks ago, calves and yearlings sold 6 to 10 bucks higher. Tell you what, there's a lot of demand for calves and especially stockers here in this new year. Stick-out sale in Dodge City was 74 head of steers, weighed 782 at 194.75. Your Zoetta stick-out sale of the day was Coffeyville Stockyards, the North Barn in Kansas there, 4,200 head for their feeder sale there. First sale of the new year. Look at this automated market report through Cattle Market Central. They're also a DV Auction customer. You can view and bid their sales every time they have one. But look at their best tested weights, 466 head of 6-weight steers, average 650 pounds at 185.97. 395 head of your 7-weight steers, average 743. The weighted average price of 176.05. Get on to the yearlings, 1,025 head of 8-weight. Yearling feeder steers averaged 851, the weighted average price of 176.06. Look at some heifers, 417 head of 5-weight heifer calves, average 552, weighted average price 176.55, and 481 head of 6-weight heifer calves, average 653 in Coffeyville, Kansas, with a weighted average price of 171.90. Couple individual quotes. Auction that's near and dear to my heart. 5 States Livestock Auction in Clayton, New Mexico. First started and built by my grandpa way back in the late 1940s. They had a heck of a sale on Wednesday, and I tell you what, it is bone dry up there. You look at these tumbleweeds that filled the grandstands here just a couple, 3 weeks ago there at Union County Fairgrounds right there in Clayton, New Mexico. But they've still got calf demand. 53 head of steer calves weighed 409, bring 249.75, Clayton, New Mexico at 5 States Livestock. Your Mackerson No BS top quote for the day come out of Torrington Livestock Markets in Torrington, Wyoming. It was 145 steers, weighed 869 at $189. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.